Northeast of Gauteng, about 80 kilometers from Pretoria and 130 kilometers from Johannesburg, an hour from OR Tambo International Airport and Lanseria Airport, along these lines of latitude, you will find Dinokeng. Officially, Dinokeng is a geospatial development project aimed at stimulating job creation and investment through public-private partnerships. Unofficially, Dinokeng is one of South Africa's best-kept secrets and is being touted as a model for effective public-private participation.
The whole idea here was to kind of create viable tourism products and developments that will result in job creation for communities living in the area, because there was very little manufacturing or agriculture taking place there.
Framed by the N1 and N4 highways, Dinokeng provides easy access for South Africa's largest urban sprawl. A historically pristine and undeveloped area, the Dinokeng region is being positioned as the ideal location for a tourism venture based on wildlife and cultural experiences. The region comprises the historical and cultural precinct of Cullinan, the recreation and leisure tourism hub of Roodeplaat Dam, and the gem, the development of the eco-tourism destination of Dinokeng Game Reserve in the northern area of Dinokeng. The Dinokeng Game Reserve is a unique concept. Private landowners have agreed to their land being incorporated into a game reserve, and government will invest in infrastructure to create the reserve. Landowners retain their land ownership and benefit from developing their own tourism facilities and services, particularly beds, on their land holdings, and also from game-related reserve income. Government achieves economic development, job creation, and stimulation of tourism via a conservation initiative, without having to purchase significant land to form a reserve. Putting this into practice, however, was far from simple, and there were false starts.
I think we work very hard on getting people to buy in, and as I said, there are some key people that have not bought into the concept. So it took a lot of time to actually fence people out who didn't want to be part of it, and kind of moving fences and getting community to buy into the idea for example. I mean, there was a lot of problems with the local community who feared the fact that there were going to be big five fierce and ferocious animals that might actually kind of come into communities and stuff like that. So, I mean, so you probably see a lot of fencing was pulled down because of fears of community, and ultimately even a wall having to be constructed against one community to kind of get them the sense that this would be safer than just game fencing.
Going back to 1995, the stalled Northeast Gauteng initiative, intended only to form a Big Five game reserve, followed by renewed efforts in 1996 and 1997 to form the reserve under the name Amakulu. 1998 saw an IUCN feasibility report recommending that there was sufficient financial and socio-economic reason to continue with the reserve, but not the planned Biosphere Reserve. The year 2000 saw the project amalgamated into the precursor to Blue IQ and dubbed Dinokeng for the first time. Project staff were employed and the master planning begun as part of the wider regional tourism destination development, with the Dinokeng Game Reserve as the anchor project.
I think there's been a real uptake since the inclusion of the buffalo and the formal opening of the game reserve. I think a lot of people now believe that this is actually happening, and are more open to the idea of kind of incorporating their land into it and allowing us to actually expand the game reserve into a viable kind of area that we need to.
The public-private partnership with landowners has seen the planned infrastructure development by government in the project area. This included fencing in participating landowners, upgrading roads and signage, building entrance gates, and introducing wild animals on a planned basis, with the eventual integration of buffalo, the last of the Big Five, in 2012. The Dinokeng Game Reserve was officially opened in September 2011, making Dinokeng Game Reserve the first free-roaming Big Five residential game reserve in Gauteng and probably in the world, with hippo, zebra, hyena, warthog, giraffe, jackal, wildebeest and eland, as well as over 300 bird species.
Most of our rhino herd were bought from landowners in the area, and they obviously occurred naturally. We brought in lion from the Lowveld as well, We have 5 lion now, and we're bringing in 2 more pairs in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We released our first cheetahs about 4 months ago, and we plan on bringing in more. And then most of the plains game occurred naturally, and the numbers have increased over the past 2 years to an extent that we are now harvesting plains game in the game reserve.
The reserve has more than doubled in size from inception, as 200 participating landowners have incrementally bought into the vision of being part of the bigger picture. Visitor numbers have increased by 20% over the last 3 years, providing a measurable indication of the success of the project, as well as funding the initiative, with over 6,920 visitors entering Dinokeng Game Reserve in the last 12 months.
Next steps for Dinokeng in the region are moving on to Rhodoplat. The public-private partnership needs to be developed there. Feasibility studies are underway. And what it's looking like is that you probably have a lot of waterfront development from things like boating on the river, kind of cruise boats on the river, on the Rhodoplat Dam, establishment of medium kind of levels of accommodation for ordinary South Africans through to high-end accommodation. So that feasibility and study has been finalized at the moment, and then it would be about taking it out and trying to get a PP partnership in place, triple P partnership in place to actually get that area developed.
Although still a work in progress, Dinokeng offers an experience of rolling African bushveld, adventure activities to get your pulse racing, fine dining to satisfy the most particular palate, and a rich and diverse history.
Earlier, Alicia Seckham caught up with Adri Van Der Veer, Chairperson of the Dinokeng Game Reserve, to find out more about the establishment of this unique public-private partnership.
Joining me now is Adri Van Der Veer. He's the chairperson of the Dinokeng Landowners Association. Thanks so much, Adri, for joining us this afternoon. Well, with Dinokeng in northern Gauteng, rich in natural, cultural and heritage sites as well, it's been strongly promoted as a tourism site. Flesh that out for us. What exactly are we looking at? What's the appeal?
I think the appeal is it's a free-roaming Big 5 game reserve in Gauteng. Proximity to Pretoria is only 35 kilometers north of Pretoria. It's a malaria-free area. So if you think about it, it is the closest Big 5 game reserve to the largest economic hub on the continent.
Mm-hmm. So that part of the appeal, you seem to have surpassed initial intentions on many fronts when it comes to this development. Just looking at the master plan as it was originally laid out and then the growth and development since, what kind of evolution have we seen getting this hub, if we can call it that, to where it is right now?
Well, if we think about where the game reserve started, it used to be game farms and perhaps some cattle farms in that area. And when government came to the landowners and said we want to develop a Big 5 game reserve, that was an ambitious plan under the Blue IQ initiative. Today it's a game reserve, 18,500 hectares and growing. We've got aggressive growth plans, expansion strategy for the game reserve. There are many products in the game reserve that tourists and people can come and enjoy, ranging from accommodation to flights in a microlight, balloon flights, game drives, lots of other activities to enjoy.
So this has really ballooned. To what extent are we envisaging more growth in this regard? I mean, what are some of the targets you've set in terms of where this development eventually needs to get? And talk us through some of the investments being made here, because you talk about government having a hand. To what extent are we seeing private sector getting involved?
Well, the government was instrumental in setting up the game reserve. They put up the capital initially to get the game reserve going in terms of fencing, buying game, also the gate infrastructure. Private landowners have signed their properties into the game reserve, and many of them are developing lodge facilities. There are other developments taking place which I don't want to talk about right now. They're exciting, but not on the cards yet. One of the things that we're going to be developing is an arts and craft market at the entrance of the game reserve. The game reserve, as I said, is currently 18,500 hectares. We're aiming to increase the game reserve very significantly to surpass the size of Pilansberg. If I can refer you to the speech of the Premier of Gauteng in February, she wanted the game reserve to grow by 40,000 hectares this year. That's an ambitious target, but I think at the end of the day, the game reserve will probably be in the region of about 80,000 hectares. So there is quite a bit of investment that goes into that.
One assumes that the revisions that have been made along the way and the kind of investments you're seeing being made speaks to just how much traction the Dinokeng has gained as a tourist hub. What kind of tourism numbers are we looking at here?
We're looking at about 3,000 tourists per month at the moment, but I think as soon as we get the self-drive routes up and running, which is one of our big targets this year, we'll probably see in the region of about 10,000 visitors per month.
Okay, so very big numbers we're looking at. In terms of target market, who are we looking at?
We're looking at predominantly South Africans, but also overseas visitors. Remember, because of the proximity, it's a very nice destination for an overseas visitor if he wants to spend an evening on a business trip in Dinokeng.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looking at it, private travel versus corporate travel, let's break it down there. I mean, are you seeing vast differences in terms of who's traveling on that segmental basis?
Yes, we see a combination of both the commercial market and the private market. It depends on the kind of products they're looking for. There are conference facilities, so the corporate market is attracted to that. There are adventure places as well, which the corporate market is attracted to. And then for the private people, everything ranging from very nice accommodation down to self-catering, and even a restaurant if you want to go out there just for the day and enjoy the game.
Overall, Adri, how do you see this contributing to tourism in South Africa?
I think it's got a very important role to play. It's a public-private participation scheme which sets an example, and because it's so close to Gauteng, the economic hub, it is an enticement for visitors to enjoy the rest of what South Africa has got to offer in terms of game parks.
Mm-hmm. Looking at financial viability here, I've been reading that you're looking at becoming financially viable within 20 years of operation. Just how close to that target are you right now, or is there a significant challenge that stands in your way?
I think it must be noted that 90% of conservation areas are not financially viable at all. There are only 3 game parks in South Africa that is financially viable. But we believe as soon as the game drive routes are manifested itself in Dinokeng, and as soon as we have a little bit more product and more owners signing in, the game reserve will actually be financially viable long before the 20 years.
Just looking at the work that's being done in getting more investment to come your way, what exactly are you doing to put Dinokeng out there as an investment avenue?
I think the Gauteng provincial government is aiding a lot in terms of marketing Dinokeng. That's by far the most important aspect that we have. And then private landowners are encouraged to buy property in Dinokeng and develop. The prices that we've seen for land has been increasing significantly. And I think in about 10 years from now, the property there will be very expensive.